Hello and welcome to Stef Talks Trash. This is your host, Stefanie Valentic, Editorial Director of Waste 360. And today, I'll be talking trash with Denise Coogan, the Manager of Environmental Partnerships at Subaru. Denise brought zero waste to Subaru's factories, and now she's taken that strategy down the field to Subaru Park, home of Major League Soccer's Philadelphia Union. Let's hear from Denise about how she's scoring a game-winning goal in sustainability. Enjoy the show.
First of all, thank you so much for joining me today. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your background and your relationship with waste and how you came into this current role that you have?
Sure, I'd love to. Well, my name is Denise Coogan, and I'm the Environmental Partnership Manager for Subaru of America. And I've worked with Subaru for 21 years, going on 21 years now. 5 years with Subaru of America and 16 years with Subaru of Indiana Automotive in Lafayette, Indiana, not far from where you are, Stefanie. When I started with Subaru of Indiana, I was their environmental group leader, doing most of the compliance work. So our Title V permitting and all the waste and everything like that. And our president of Fuji Heavy Industry at the time was our corporation name. It's now Subaru Corporation. But the president had said to me, we want you to be zero landfill in this facility, and you have 5 years to do it. And at the time, I was still kind of getting used to the interpretation, and having the interpreter speak, and he was speaking in Japanese, and you hear all this, and it can be very confusing at times. And so I'm sitting there smiling, saying, sure, yeah. And then it came through what he had said, and, and I was like, oh, how are we going to do this? So this was 2002 when we started, very early 2002, and we didn't really know what to do. There was no one else really that was doing it, and so we started really simply with pop cans and bottles and newspapers that we would get in the break areas. And then we put these big posters on the cafeteria windows. We had ceiling to floor windows in there, and one looked like a pop can, and the other one looked like a pop bottle. And then every month we would color in how many that we had recycled for that month, and it got people interested. And it kind of looked like the United Way thermometer, that breaks at, and so that's what we did, and we got people excited. And then they started asking questions. Why are we doing this? And then we'd say, well, we've been tasked with getting to zero landfill in 5 years. And then we went out and we got their ideas, and we started soliciting ideas from the people who work on the production line, the frontline worker. All the best ideas come from them. And so we started doing that and implementing those ideas and doing things. And then on May 4th of 2004, we sent our last load of material to a landfill. So we have since that time reduced the amount of waste generated at that facility by over 50%, about 55% now. So it's a 4.5 million square foot facility sitting on 832 acres. I think over 6,000 employees now there. So it's a city within a city, basically. And there is a small percentage of waste that can't be recycled, like some restroom waste and things like that gets sent to Covanta Energy Services for waste to energy. So we salvage the energy out of that waste. And but other than that, we're recycling everything, and everything is source separated by the associate. So that's what makes the recycling. It makes the material that we're recycling more attractive to recycling companies. So, and there's a lot more recycling companies in the Midwest where you are, Stefanie, than I'm finding on the coast. Yeah.
So, I mean, that had to be such a task to take it from zero to where you are now. What did you do to, get employees, get people excited to kind of change the way they were just taking what was, essentially trash and taking it from the landfill and turning it into something that it's going to be recycled?
So the associates at Subaru are very competitive, and they really want to be the first on a lot of things. So we were the first auto company to be ISO 14001 certified, to be 9001 certified, to be 50001 certified. We wanted to be the first to be zero landfill. So we gave them that challenge, And that's kind of what got things started. And that's how we got them excited about it. And honestly, asking the people on the production floor what their ideas were, because having worked production for many years when I was younger, I know that when you walk into that factory on January 1st, you know what you're going to be doing on December 31st. And I tell you, it's very humbling. It's a very humbling experience. And you know that sometimes you're working for supervisors who, you know, you could do better than they could, you know? So it's, when you go out and you ask folks, what would you do in this little segment of this line, in this little segment of your world? How would you change things to make things better for the environment? And those ideas started coming in, and then we would implement those ideas. The president would come out and the vice presidents, and they'd be able to showcase their ideas to those folks and get a handshake from the president. And those type of things just kept that momentum moving on the project. It was very daunting to sit there and say, how do we do this? But really getting everyone involved and having our management involved. So it's a program. These programs are top directed, bottom driven. So it's directed from the top. You know, we have this mandate, we will do this, and driven from the people underneath, sometimes sandwiching the middle management in the middle of it. So we brought them kicking and screaming into the project. Really, most of them were really very receptive and loved that their employees were involved. Some, very frankly, said, my job is to make a car, not to worry about your waste, Denise. So, you know, get out of my department. And then we would just gently, or sometimes not so gently, convince them that this was the way we needed to go. And once they understood what we were doing, and once they understood how good that was for the company, the money that we saved. So we average about $1.5 million benefit over the cost of the program every year. So, and it's a very expensive program. So that money then can be put back into other things. You know, the people there don't pay for their insurance. There's no premium for their insurance. It's all free to them. So those types of savings then can be, you know, not marketed, but conveyed and communicated back to the employees to say, this is what you're doing. You know, this is your efforts. Your efforts have done this. And because of this, we're able to do this. And that's kind of how everything really got moving well.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of how, you know, taking it from an environmental health and safety concept and working with, you know, compliance and OSHA, and in turn, you know, from a sustainability standpoint, you know, getting employees not only to understand how it, you know, impacts the company, but also it impacts their daily lives. So
Yes.
it's really interesting how you kind of applied that concept, you know, from a sustainability and recycling standpoint in order to reach that zero landfill. So, you know, let's move into the partnership with the Philadelphia Union and Subaru
Yes.
Park. So how did that partnership start, and how did, you know, that whole concept of waste diversion and zero landfill play into Subaru's mission and values?
Well, you know, we approached, or they approached us. I'm not sure who made the first step, but about becoming a sponsor of the Philadelphia Union, and so we just love that. And when we go in to sponsor or to work with a partner, it's not just to write a check and walk away and get our logo everywhere. You know, that's not what we're here for. We really want to make a difference in the community and in how we. And how we're perceived in the community. You know, we want to make a difference and have that action behind our words. And so when we came in with the union, you know, the waste was one of the things. We wanted to make sure that the stadium was a zero landfill stadium. And so that was one thing, you know. So now when we go to the games, you know, we have dogs that you can look, you know, to adopt that are there. We have, you know, the cars are there and all that's there, but also the zero landfill tent is there. And so we have a garden for good on the property. So we have a huge, it's a huge garden that we have. The Pennsylvania Horticultural Society helps us maintain during the year, and then that food that's grown from that then is donated to kitchens and things like that. So that was kind of the all-encompassing idea of working with the Philadelphia Union to take our love promise pillars and expand those into that, and to let the people, the soccer fans who come to the games, understand what Subaru is about. We're more, we want to be more than a car company. And so this is one way that we have to show it. So when we started working on the Zero Landfill project, it's been over a year now, year and a half. Wow. We've been working on this and looking at what they generate, how they generate it, where it's generated, why it's generated. So I always say, all roads lead back to a good inventory. So no matter what, if you're a bank, you inventory your stock every night, the tellers inventory their stock and it has to reconcile. And the same goes with waste. So you have to know what you're generating so you can know where to start, how to pick that low hanging fruit. And so we looked at everything that they're using, and we're going back and we're changing the things that we can to be more environmentally friendly. So we really do want to reduce the amount of waste being generated. Reuse is not something that we can really do in a public venue like that, but we would always like to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Recycle being the last of the hierarchy. So we're looking at how we can reduce the amount of waste that's being generated and how we can recycle what we do have left. And so that they've been wonderful to work with. They really are. They're looking at every little item, even the little souffle cups that you put the ketchup in, how do we change that? How do we make that a better experience? So all those kind of things going together, and change the back of the house, how they prepare the food, how they serve it, all those types of things. Food waste is such a large part of our waste. And so looking at how they take that food then to the premier seating things, do they really have to fill that whole tray up if they're not going to eat the whole tray and you're just going to throw away half of it? So looking differently at that and how they serve that. So just, how they've set up the back of the house. So they have now balers for their cardboard and compactors for different things, so that it can be sent out for, like the food can all be sent out for composting now. The cardboard is all kept dry and separate from everything else. So now that can be sent to the mills for recycling. The plastic bottles, cups, and cans are kept separate, so that can be sent out to plastic recyclers. And then the few things that are left over then will be sent to Covanta services, so for energy from waste. So that's kind of how we're setting it up and getting that communication out to the fans, letting them be part of that success, much like we did at the plant in Indiana. Allowing people to be part of that success, to take pride in knowing that they've done something to help the environment, and then communicating that back to the fans.
Yeah, so it's really interesting how you took, the concepts of when you had this movement at the factory to move to zero waste, to moving it to something that, impacts a greater community, and you can actually demonstrate it in a soccer, on the soccer field, essentially. So, what were there any particular types of waste, at Subaru Park that were difficult to address?
There are, right now it's a little more difficult too because of COVID. Mm-hmm. So like this little souffle cups, they were plastic. We want to change those to a paper that could be composted, compostable paper. But now with COVID, they're trying to go back to the individual packages. So we've kind of got them off of, we're weaning them off of that. And so hopefully the rest of the year now that we'll be able to use more of a compostable things like that. But there are some, when it's food stuff. So because that's a lot of what we have there, people are buying hot dogs and fries and pizza and things like that. So now a lot of your stuff is contaminated with food stuff. So, getting compostable type of containers, not always the best result really comes from a lot of those compostable things. So making sure that we're using them strategically, but reducing the amount, like instead of having the big clamshell things that, as you put your food in, put it in like a paper boat. So it still might not be able to be composted or recycled, but we're reducing the amount of waste that we're sending to Covanta for energy. So those types of things, it's a little more challenging at the stadium because of the food stuff. The plant was, they had every type of material you could think of, but we could also control what was coming into the plant, and to some respect we can control what's coming in to the stadium too, because fans can't bring stuff in. So it's only what they're buying there. So once we can control what those vendors buy, it sounds like I'm a very controlling person. I'm not really. Well, I guess I am, but
Well,
I don't like to admit it.
There's so much strategic, thinking that needs to go into it to make sure that it's directed the right way.
Correct.
Whether it goes to Covanta, to your recycling partners, to wherever it needs to go. It really takes a lot of thought, and like you said, it's not just control, but it's direction and making sure that people.
Yes.
Realize where it, if it ends up in the wrong place, that it's going to cause, a contamination issue or some type of other issue that's not going to get it to the right place in the end.
Yeah, it's really about designing for sustainability, thinking about it before it's become the problem, getting that, 95% planning, 5% execution, right? So you're looking and you're planning and you're thinking about, is there a better way to do this? Well, not right now, maybe. So we'll do this later. But, so you kind of have to, it's an ever-changing, evolving, constantly improving systems. So we're doing this at the national parks also. That's what I've been working on for the last 5 years. And so that is a total different beast, because you can't control what anyone brings in there. But so we've learned things from that we've been able to use at the stadium also. The containers that we've bought, it is very much about co-locating the containers, the recycling, the composting, and the trash all together, having that standardized labeling. So no matter where you are in the stadium, you can see, oh, I see the blue container. That's where I put my recycling. Oh, green, I know is compost. And so when they come to the games enough, and when they get that in their mind, then it becomes automatic. And then they know, that's where I put my food. Oh, the black is where I put my trash. And getting that standardized labeling, getting those containers. The containers we bought were all made out of milk jugs, from Wisconsin, from a company in Wisconsin. So I think we used, I think it's 131,810 milk jugs to make the containers that we bought. I wrote it down, but let me look. 131,810 milk jugs to make the trash containers that we have there in the stadium. So that was 131,000 containers that, didn't get sent to a landfill. So thinking about all of that, the whole picture. Yeah. So that's that's the fun part of it, really.
And so you mentioned that you're working with Covanta. Can you tell me a little bit more about, your utilizing Spectra and Recycle Track Systems as well? How do they play into this picture?
So they've all been wonderful partners with us. So RTS will pick the material up from the stadium. We have it separated in the back in separate containers, roll-offs, even down to the color of the bag in the container that people put things into. So that as those people who have gone around to those containers and emptied the bags out and put them into another container that will then go back and be put into the roll-offs, they can look at that bag and they can say, oh, this is a black bag that goes to trash. This is a blue bag that goes to recycling. And so RTS will come pick it up. They transport the composting then to Organics Diversion, who does all of our composting for us. And then the trash then gets sent just a few yards really down the road to Covanta Services, and then RTS takes the recycling for us and separates that out. It's basically separated by plastic, so that part's done for them. But there's probably some secondary and tertiary recycling that would have to, or separation that would have to happen there.
So let's talk a little bit more about the fans. How do you, how are you either educating the fans or getting them to be more conscious and excited about, building the sustainable system as soccer fans?
That's been the fun part. So we're having little videos that we've made and things that will flash across the screens, at the stadium as they're watching the game. There's announcements that are made about that. We talk about it as they're walking up on the plaza. We have pop tents out. We've put tents up, and we talk about it out there to tell people what we're doing. So we have our Subaru ambassadors, and they're just like Uber Subaru fans, and we also have Subaru employees that come to the games, and they volunteer to be an ambassador. and they'll stand at the trash containers, and they will help people as they come out. They'll say, okay, oh, I see that you have a plastic bottle that goes in here, or you've got half of a hot dog that goes in the composting. And so then we have aprons for them. I have an apron over here. And so they wear those aprons, they stand at the containers, they tell people why we're doing this, why we want to do this. We want to be the first one to do this, and so getting people excited about it. I will tell you, people have been really, really good about it. I always say people want to do the right thing. Honestly, I believe that people want to do the right thing. And when they know what the right thing is, they'll do it. There's always that small percentage, that you couldn't change them if you had to. But if you can get the majority of everyone wanting to do the right thing, it's amazing what can be changed. When we look at the national parks, 331 million visitors to the national parks every year. If you just got 331 million visitors to bring their reusable bottle, it's huge. That's a huge difference to the environment, And so the same at these games, if you just get people to put the stuff in the right containers, or to think about what they're buying, how they're, how much ketchup they're using, or, how much they're wasting food wise, just thinking about that, then people start to say, oh, I can make a difference. This isn't that hard. We don't have to live in grass huts and eat, wild hickory nuts to make a difference on the environment. We can make a difference by just not wasting, right?
What was really interesting to me is how you kind of took the concept of the waste that you're diverting, the 357,480 pounds of waste, and you said it's going to be equal to a cheesesteak that's 19 miles high and 50 miles wide. Like, that was just so, that's what makes it so much fun, is that you're kind of equating it and kind of making it a visual point to people to make it even more exciting.
It does. It's hard to visualize 357,000 pounds of waste. It's hard for me to, and I've been in this business for a long time. So if I can put it into something that you can see easier, then it's like, oh, it's like, people always say, well, how many Olympic swimming pools is that? Or, how many trucks is that, or something like that. But the cheesesteak I thought was just such a Philly kind of thing to do. So that was a clever idea they came up with.
It made me really hungry too, because I've been fortunate to go to Philly for a few times, and now I just have this picture in my head of this perfect cheesesteak that's just huge, and
they are pretty good. But everyone, having just moved out here 5 years ago, everyone you ask, where's the best place to get a cheesesteak? And everyone, honestly, I don't think I've had anyone tell me the same place twice. So I think everybody has their favorite place to get one. But yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I same thing when I went there. I would ask the Uber driver, and I'd be like, what's the best place to get a cheesesteak? And somebody every single time something different. So
yeah, it is.
You have to spend 3 weeks there just to figure out, just to go to enough cheesesteak places.
I think so.
So we're talking about the recyclable items. What about the non-recyclable items? I saw that they're going to be used to generate steam for turbines to produce electricity in the area. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes. So the things that we can't recycle, there's things like the little plastic cheese cups, and we're trying to get those changed. But right now, some of the restroom waste that can't be recycled. So really minimizing how much we send to Covanta. But I've worked with Covanta for 20 years now, probably. And they get a bad rap at times because of what they do. But when you look, we audit all the facilities that we send any waste to. If we send recycling, if we send hazardous waste, if we send waste to energy, or energy from waste to Covanta, and we've done major full out audits of all their environmental activities. So their air permitting, their water permitting, and looking at all their records, going back to the EPA, looking at the records and the violations, looking at all that. And I'll tell you, Covanta has a stellar reputation for doing things the right way. And so they have scrubbers on their stacks that scrub out a lot of the pollutants that happen because we're burning this material. But you're also rescuing the BTU value of that material, and so much petroleum-based products, so many plastics in our waste now, capturing that petroleum in those plastics, and at least being able to to take that energy and use it again. So what they do is they have these huge boilers, and they will put the material into these boilers, and there's these big pipes, these really big pipes like this that run up and down these boilers, and water runs through them. And as it's being heated, it turns into steam. The steam turns the turbines, and then the turbines generate electricity. And so you're getting something from it. It's not just being buried in the ground, where you're going to run the risk of contaminating the groundwater, where you create methane from the material, especially food waste, that gets up. And methane is worse for climate change. And they're just a wonderful company to work with. So I actually Covanta helped Columbia University work on a sustainability program, courses for sustainability. And so they're a very generous company also.
Well, thank you so much. You really just took us from the beginning to kind of explaining, based on your experience, how you're going to apply these concepts at Subaru Park, what's already working. So as we're wrapping up, I would like to know what does the future look like in terms of sustainability for Subaru Park? What does that perfect zero landfill ideal and concept look like to you at Subaru Park?
I think ideally for me, what it looks like is it just continually improves. So, when we take the amount of waste being generated by visitor, normalizing that total amount of waste being generated. So everything going to all those different areas, and we normalize that by the amount of visitors they have there, fans that come in, that we see that number steadily come down, that those pounds per visitor come down, so that we're not generating as much. I would love to see the recycling rate and diversion rate keep going up, so that we send less and less to Covanta, and Covanta knows that. They know that less and less will be coming to them, and they're fine with that. So I think, to me, ideally that's what it looks like to me. So always refining what the vendors are using, how they're selling things, how they're packaging things, how the food is being prepared, all those kind of things, because you're never done, because technology changes, new types of material are brought in. So it's just a constantly looking at what we're doing and making it better. And so that's kind of how I look at it.
Thank you once again for joining me for this episode of Stef Talks Trash. For this and other episodes, please visit waste360.com. Have a great day.